second talk, is like, basically is some practical things on prayer. And, this place is very dear to my heart. I actually found my vocation in the Catholic Information Center. It was after going to confession to a priest, and I told him I was a stockbroker, and he says, you need spiritual direction, and that was kind of history. And in my first meeting, and I can share this with you, I kind of told him I was thinking about priesthood, and he kind of came back to me in a very gentle way, but very pointedly said, well, first you have to be a Christian. I was like, oh, okay, and he said, you really have to work on holiness. And I'm like, oh, that's right, it's part of being a priest, right? And he basically was saying, you kind of get your life directed towards God. And so he kind of got me on these 7 habits. So this happened years ago, and I do them still today, every day. And this was one of the challenges, is that after a year of doing this, I ended up becoming a priest. So it's amazing how when you do these habits, that you're putting yourself in front of God, and when you pray, things happen, or God gives you the grace. So the first thing that these are 7 habits. Now, first and foremost, don't think that you have to do all 7, and you might do a lot of these, but if you don't, it's like the challenge would be like one more, maybe another one, and then as you get stronger, then add. It's just like probably exercise routines. Like, I don't know, if you're like me, I always go more than, and you pay the price. Like, don't do it, and you do it, and you hurt yourself. I have that personality, so I would always do all 7 and fail miserably when I was starting this. But over time, I got better with it. But the idea is just to pray and to do some of these. And I would say by the time, within 2 or 3 years, do all of them. And prayer, what is it? It's going to God and having a conversation with Him. Simply put, it's about listening to God and talking to Him. And there's different ways we can do that. And I think first is we have to have a time to pray and a place to pray, right? It's got to be scheduled. I mean, there's no two ways about it. If you don't schedule it, it ain't going to happen. Because what does the Lord say? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, right? So it's like, okay, there's a time to do these things. There's a place I do them, and I have a rhythm. I'll go into that, and we'll kind of, because even our Lord, remember in Mark chapter 1. It says he stayed up all late, healing people, and he goes to a deserted place to pray. And then the apostles come and say, everyone's looking for you. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's go. Let's go. But he got up early, and he went to a place he knew he could get away from everybody. And it was a quiet place, right? So, all right, first habit is silent mental prayer. And the saints say you should work up to 30 minutes eventually. Every Catholic should get up to at least 30 minutes of mental prayer a day. Okay, now I do 30 minutes twice a day. I do 30 in the morning and 30 in the evening. And I got to tell you, of all the habits, this for me particularly is the most fruitful. It's not the most dramatic thing all the time, and sometimes it's rather dry. But if I miss mental prayer, like, I'm off. And there's certain habits you'll notice when you don't do them, you just feel the difference. And so what is mental prayer? It means just sort of talking to God heart to heart. Reading the gospel and thinking, what does this say? Bringing our concerns to God. Quieting down the, was it Teresa Lava called the imagination, the mad woman in the attic, calming things down a little bit. Where do you do it? I do it in front of the Eucharist. I live in a house that has the Eucharist, so it makes sense, right? And it's like, why wouldn't you do it anywhere else, Some people say, I pray in my room. Well, like, if you're a priest, you live in a church, so go in front of the Lord, But you don't have that luxury. And maybe you can find churches, which is hard to find, that are open. But if the priest is holy, he usually keeps it open to 9 o'clock. And it's a beautiful time. You go to church by yourself because no one's there usually. Monday through Friday, you get the whole parish to yourself. You can pick any pew and you get right up next to the Lord, and it's all you and the Lord. And it's just looking at the, kind of talking to the Lord. One anecdote, we'll go on to the next one, but, my brother, he actually visited recently. He's one of my favorite brothers. He's just a really cheerful guy and a lot of fun to hang out with. And so when I was first ordained, like, he used to come to trips with priests, and he was the only lay person we allow on the trips. And I guess all the priests liked him, and he was low maintenance. You know, he would kind of help out with certain things. He never complained, and so I think he got comfortable hanging out with priests. And so one night I get this phone call late at night, and he's like a senior. He's a junior or senior in college. He's senior in college, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and I open the phone. I say, what, John? It's 11 o'clock. I'm trying to sleep. And he's like, no, man, I got to talk. I said, can we wait till tomorrow? He's like, I got to talk. I was like, all right. So I said, what is it? And he goes, well, how did you know if God's calling you to be a priest? And I was like, oh. So I sat up. I'm like, you thinking about it? And I was like, oh, that'd be great. Maybe we could be pastor. He could be my associate. We'd probably kill each other. But I said, well, what are you thinking about? He said, yeah, I am. And I said, well, what's the problem? He goes, well, her name's Mary. And I was like, who's Mary? And he's like, well, it's this girl I've been dating. I was like, you've kept that on the wraps for a year and a half. Like, you never talked about her. And so I asked a couple questions, like, is she Catholic? He goes, yeah. She goes daily mass. Okay. Is she pretty? She's beautiful. Is she smart? Yeah. She's like top of the class. We got a real problem here, Joe. Or John. And I was like, all right. So, and I was trying to get him off the phone. I was like, well, look, why don't you just go to the church, the chapel, and open up the Bible every day and just sit there for 15 minutes and just ask the Lord to tell you what to do. He's like, that's it? I'm like, yeah. And I hung up the phone and went back to sleep. 8 days later, he calls me up. And he's like, I don't know. You got to help me with this one. I said, all right, what are you talking about? And I totally forgot about the challenge. And he goes, yeah, I did it. 15 minutes a day, praying about my vocation. I said, all right, cool. What happened? He goes, well, 7 days. I mean, it was beautiful. I opened the Bible, and God was talking to me personally. But like day 8, I opened at Matthew, and now his name is John Joseph Gabriel Swink, and his girlfriend was Mary Elizabeth Joseph. It's kind of weird, yeah. And so he opens the Bible, and it says, Joseph, don't be afraid to take Mary as your wife. And he pointed to that line. And he asked me, he's like, well, what do I do? I was like, get her a ring, dummy. I was like, I've been praying for years. I never got like that straight of an answer before. I said, this is pretty clear. I said, you get a lot of peace with it? He goes, 100%. When I was praying about it just made perfect sense. Why wouldn't I? And I was like, forget about priesthood, and we ended up doing a marriage in California. It was awesome, and he's got 3 kids now, and they're really happily married, and he's practicing the faith and all that, but he asked God, do you pray to God about things? About, I don't know, whatever's going on. What are you asking me, Lord?